If you guys have been on TikTok recently, you've probably seen this guy make a lot of videos about Islam. And he's a Christian kid, which seems to be a little bit obsessed. I mean, if you look at his last 12 videos, 8 of them are about Islam, which to me screams insecurity. But nevertheless, if you guys have actually taken the time out to look at his arguments, you'll find that a lot of his arguments against Islam use the Bible to disprove Islam because the Islamic narrative is different to the biblical narrative. Well, I have news for you, my friend. Our weakest narrations from the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, that we as Muslims don't even benefit from when it comes to extracting rulings, are stronger and more historically accurate and reliable than the entirety of the Bible combined, start to finish, Old Testament to New Testament. In fact, Islamic history as a whole is stronger and more authentic than the entirety of history combined by a million miles. You see, for someone to attribute something to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, it has to fulfill some conditions for us to even give it attention as Muslims. And these conditions are as follows. It has to have a chain of narration from the moment it's compiled in a book all the way back to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Meaning, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said it to this person, who said it to that person, who said it to that person, until it's compiled in a book. And not only that, but the biographies of every single person in the chain need to be preserved. Why? So they can be assessed, so that the scholars can give a final grading on the narration that's being said. And of the criteria that the scholars look at is how strong and excellent the memory of each person in the chain is. If they show that they have excellent memory, they barely make any mistakes when they recite the Quran, and so on and so forth, then that ticks the first criteria. Another criteria is that every person in the chain must be known to not commit any of the major sins, to avoid most of the minor sins, and even avoid things which are allowed, which could potentially hurt their reputation. And just in case you thought that there's nothing more to it than that, scholars that are more trustworthy than the narrators cannot object to those narrators, otherwise it would hurt the authenticity of the chain that is being studied. If all of these criteria are met, then know that you have an authentic narration from the Prophet Muhammad that can be attributed to him, peace be upon him. But if 1 or 2 or 3 of the criteria that I've mentioned are even reduced by a tiny bit, then that narration is graded weak and we don't even use it to extract rulings. So for example, if one narrator in this entire chain is known to make a lot of mistakes when recalling things from memory, they have weak memory, it's a weak narration. If scholars that are more trustworthy object to the trustworthiness of just one of the narrators in the chain, you have a weak narration. If this chain of narration that you're studying has just one break in the chain and it's not entirely continuous, it's a weak narration. So if you compare this level of scrutiny from the Muslims to their own texts, to the scrutiny of the biblical scholars, you'll find that there's absolutely no comparison. And so to this Christian kid that's running his mouth making a lot of videos about Islam, stop using the Bible to discredit the Quran and Islam when the Quran and Islam are a million times more authentic than your entire tradition.